Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. I know my past few videos have been on the long side and it doesn't seem like you guys like them. So I'm going to keep this one brief, and I decided to rectify something that I thought I had taken care of a long time ago. Yesterday I did 4 readings using the Perrin tarot, and in my video I said, I'm sure I showcased this deck a long time ago, just look at my playlist. Well, I went and looked at my playlist. I went and just looked for this deck anywhere in my list, and I never showcased it. So I thought I'm not going to showcase it now because there's probably been 200 videos on this deck already. But I thought I would show a few cards that explain why I really like this deck. Now, the deck I'm referencing is the Perrin Tarot. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, I purchased this like mass-produced deck when it first came on my radar. I purchased it from a vendor in Italy. And it's a mass-produced deck, but I think I probably came across this deck either online when I was perusing Italian decks, or probably from the Encyclopedia by Stuart Kaplan. And I thought, wow, this is such a cool little deck, and so that's why I wanted it. So I purchased this deck, I'm not sure when. The first video I think I did with it was in 2019. So I'm guessing I probably bought this deck probably around 2019. Then I came upon the fact that Giordano Berti made a copy, had published a copy. I think his copy came out in 2016. And it was probably not until 2020 that I was able to afford it, because the note from Giordano to me says it was 2020, April of 2020. So it wasn't until April of 2020 that I was able to afford this deck. So that's when I purchased it. And it is a superior publication than this one, although I'm happy to have both. So let me flip the camera, and I've pulled a few examples from the pips, a few examples from the court cards, and a few examples from the triumph cards, explaining why I love this deck. Here's the back, which are the same in both decks. The backs of a little bit different. They have the same pattern, but they have a black border, whereas Giordano's doesn't. Now, I like, the pips. I like everything about this deck, really. The pips have an elegance, similar to maybe something you'd see in De La Rocca or the Soprafino. It's not copying them, but it's reminiscent of their style, right? It's very, there's an elegance about it. And for all the pips. I just picked a few random. I wasn't really paying attention to the ones I chose. I just picked one from each category. I guess I picked 2 from Batons in Error. And then the court cards are equally as elegant. You can look at this Queen of Swords, and she's got a personality. She's elegant. She's the queen. She's regal, as is this guy. But you can tell they have personalities. Now, yesterday I did 4 readings using this deck, and this card showed up in, I think, 3 of the 4 readings. And I was struck each time by this, right, on the shield, which in the context of what's going on in the world, which is what the question was about, it made me think of Denmark, right? And then the whole thing with Greenland and all that. But even without that reference, of course, and I like the fact that it was there, just when I needed to see it in reference to what's going on in this world, and how, well, I don't want to get into the whole political thing, but he also looks very regal. And then we have the Queen of Coins. Gold. And then the King of Cups. Now, the Triumph cards I love the Triumph cards. And the first thing I'm going to point out, not that I like so much the individual Pope or the individual Emperor of this deck, but I love that they have a chance, the opportunity to face off with one another. Traditionally, the Pope faces us. And even if the Pope and the Emperor might be in the same row together or the same spread together or even next to one another, if we may definitely say, oh, there's a power struggle somewhere, because they're in the same row or they're in the same spread, or just be careful of a power struggle. Or are you struggling with something within yourself, right? Other cards surround, it's all in the context of the question. If the person has a power, is having a struggle within him or herself, then the other cards might tell us what it was about, or what's in between could tell us what the struggle, the inner struggle might be about. But the power struggle could be something they need to pay attention to at work or in any other area. If they're asking for, if they're doing a political reading, it could be something like that too. So remember, it's in the context of the question. I can't stress that enough. It's one thing if you walk away with one thing from my videos, and if you learn one thing from me, it's the context of the question. I say it all the time, that at any rate, I'm a broken record. But I like that there's an opportunity for these two men or individuals to confront one another face on. There's no missing it. Because, somebody who's beginning and learning could see the Pope and the Emperor in a spread and maybe not catch that there might be a power struggle. But if they face one another, if they're in the same row, or if they're end capping a few cards, or if they're one right next to the other this way, then there's a power struggle. And then what if it occurs this way? They're ignoring one another's, power, or they're just, disregarding. Right? There could still be a conflict because they're disregarding one another. They're ignoring one another. And here they're actively engaged in a power struggle. Now, I've only got a few, so I'm not going to bore you for long. But look at this Fool card. We have a jester, and he's got his wand with his little, I forget what it's called, particularly when the jester has his own little face on the end. But it appears like he's thumbing his nose at us. Now, you may miss it, or, you may not catch it right away, and it may look like he's saluting or saying, hey, or something like that. But he also could be he could also be thumbing his nose at us, which is in keeping with who the jester was, the Fool was, right? He kind of thumbs his nose at what is typical, or what is expected. He's outside of the realm. He's zero, remember? So it's more than likely he's thumbing his nose at us. Now we have Il Legato. Now a lot of times he's just like he's like a trickster, a con man who comes into town. He tries to trick us with the ball and the cups and that kind of thing, But here we have, someone who's got a position in society. He's the lowest rank in society. He's not up there with whoever's, he's not up high ranking, but he does have a position in a society, unlike the Fool. He is low ranking. He's a cobbler, but look, he's so charming. And in his shop, it's not just like he's in a vacuum, where he's just got his table and his stuff. But there's like diagrams in the background, or in those days they wouldn't have photographs, I guess, but like a reminder of somebody special maybe. And then his shop is fully realized with like forms on the wall. It's a flushed out room. We see his basket and all that kind of stuff. Now, okay. And he's got a pipe, and he's got little spectacles on, and he's actively working, right? We see the thread in the shoe even. It's amazing. Now you could say, well, where is the trickster? Where is the con man? Well, okay, he's being represented as an artisan, somebody who's creating. So truly could be another aspect of the magician, not as the trickster, but as someone who creates. And so that's fine. You read the deck, right? It also could be argued that, especially if someone feels like they're getting ripped off in the context of the question, you could figure, well, this low-ranking individual in society may cut corners or charge more than he should or something like that, or maybe not give the proper change. I don't know that I would go there with this card unless it was in proximity to like the devil or greedy, something that looked like there was greed going on or something like that. Or if the question itself was, I think I'm being tricked. But in and of itself, I would just see it as someone who creates. I think it's a very charming card. And we have a lover card. And, love has his blindfold on, Cupid. But we have a man and a woman and then a sovereign, right? So this marriage has been sanctioned or approved by the authorities. So this gives a different... There's no ambiguity. I don't think there's no ambiguity here, I don't think he's like, is it vice or virtue, which is fine in other decks because that's the feeling we get when we look at those decks, right? But there's no ambiguity here. He is with his betrothed. He's making a promise and it's been sanctioned by the power of authority. Whoever's in charge, has said it's okay. And, it's a love match. So I like that. Now, Justice, I know I've spoken at length about liking Justice to have a blindfold, but her eyes are closed. Now, somebody could argue that one of her eyes is open, but I think they're closed. I think that's the shadow of her eye being closed. So her eyes are closed, and that's something I really like to see. And I also really like to see the skewed scales of Justice because Justice, Justice needs to be fair, not necessarily equitable. And then the Wheel of Fortune. This is such a cool deck. It will say, and I like it because if your card falls on this side, you're going to be getting, a flux of, on this side, right? The fortune or the good fortune is coming in. If it's on this side, misfortune may be coming or a sudden change of good luck, right? So it gives us the sides. I mean, normally we would look at which side the wheel is facing. And so we could say, well, the luck is going to change, however it affects whatever's here. But here it's just telling us it's going to change for the better on this side. And perhaps whatever's on this side will change for the worst. I think I mentioned, I'm not sure, I guess I didn't. I like the Devil card because it almost looks like his minions are in weeds, except they're flames, but it almost looks like they could part the flames, So I kind of like that. And then they're clutching, one of them is clutching onto his leg, or maybe they both are. But it's like they're in the thick of it, it's like they're in the denseness, or they're in the weeds of the fire, if that makes sense. And plus he's got a pitchfork. I just love me a devil with brimstone fire and pitchfork. Oh my gosh, look how charming. Now, in a number of other videos, and it's not that I say it every time I see it, but it has occurred to me in some videos where I've mentioned that, for all we know, the moon card with the tower and the crustacean and the dogs could just be representing a certain locale that everyone at the time might have recognized as a place to go eat lobster, a fancy dinner, like eat at Joe's, right? And here we actually have the lobster on a plate. So it really gives me the feeling that makes me laugh out loud because it's like, unless the guy was just doing, unless Perrin was just being silly and just was like, let's put this lobster on a plate, But it kind of makes me feel like maybe it is a place that everyone is familiar with. And 400 years later, whatever, this is just from the 1800s. But, when the image originally started with the there were two towers and there was a riverbank, and then there were dogs and there was a crustacean. It could have been a familiar place that people at the time might have known. Now, I haven't heard anything like that, so maybe it's not true. But that's what this makes me think. Come on, the sun with a pipe. Oh my gosh. I just love that. It's just so cute. I just love it. So these are some of the reasons why I love the Perrin. And I kept it short and sweet at 15 minutes. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, friends, peace, stay well, and be kind.